Welcome to our second episode of our podcast series, Helsinki Junior Developers. Our second episode is called How I Started My Career as a Developer in Finland. And I'm very happy to have this evening with me Margit and Hoang, who are our teachers of our 2020 and 2019 web developer programs. Welcome.
Hello.
Yeah. So, what are your backgrounds?
You can start first.
My background is I've been educated to be a teacher, but as I've been doing a little bit radio work, I did some concerts. Those needed web pages. So almost 20 years ago, I started to do some web development. Back then it was called web design and so on. So I consider myself teacher slash developer slash designer.
What about you, Hoang?
Actually, after high school, like back in where I came from, we don't really have this kind of career orientation. So I didn't know what I wanted to do. When I first I started my university study, I was originally admitted as a mechanical engineer. So I'm still in a technical field. But then later, I decided that I wanted to go studying abroad. And I went to Finland studying with a bachelor degree in information technology. And then I continued my study until 2015 when I decided that I need to get a job so that I actually get some things done. So learn by doing. And that's how I started pretty much. Yeah.
So you both have moved to Finland from abroad. What made you move to Finland?
For me, it was actually one international project. I was working back then as a teacher in Estonia, and our school wrote the project to get a little bit experience for teachers, so they know what happens different countries, to see what to teach, to be a better teacher. And my international competition network led me in Finland. I was here 2 months traineeship, and then I started to like here. I got job offer, and after a year and a half, I moved here to work as a UX developer.
Where did you had your internship and how did you got it?
As I said, I've been Estonian expert for international competitions for vocational education called Euroskills and WorldSkills. And my network is all over Europe. And the company where I got traineeship, I got it through our school. I have to say great thanks to Tabia and Rosen. And Symbio was the company who offered me traineeship, and after that they offered me a workplace.
What about you, Hoang?
So how did I make my decision to come to Finland?
Yes.
Yeah. So actually, I did not have a clear preference that I wanted to go to Finland. I sent my application to various countries, and usually other countries who teach in English, higher education, they require me to attend some sort of a pre-university education that lasts for 1 year. But Finland just admits foreign students right away to studying here. And that was really a very persuasive offer that someone who was 18 at that time would very easy to accept. So I took the chance and I went to Finland. And people usually I get asked quite often, like, why Finland? I still don't know the answer, but I remember when I was in the interview to go to the Finnish university, they asked me that question, and I told them, because it was the IT program, so I told them that because Finland is so famous for Nokia. So, because the question is about, like, why did I make that decision at that time? So at that time, my reason was Nokia. Nokia was really famous. So.
Yeah. But that's not like that long ago. I mean, but it was it like 2005, 2010?
Yeah.
So when Nokia actually was the largest mobile telephone maker in the world back then.
It was funny how I have never applied for a job in Nokia before. Yeah. So but I still think that I made the right decision to move to Finland. So far, I've been enjoying my life for the last 11 years now.
Were you always interested in coding and technology?
Well, maybe it's easier for me to answer this question by explaining how I find myself in this career path. So 2015 was the last time I attended school, and I got myself into a training program for Rovio, the creator of Angry Birds, for project where they have some legacy codes. So it's like codes that have been there for a while and nobody touched it. And they wanted to have someone during the summer to take a look at that code and improve it. So that's how I started. Before that, I didn't have any practical experience with programming. And after this summer, the Rovio business did not go very well after Angry Birds 2 release. And so I had to move on to another company, and I worked with a consulting business where the pressure is very high there, because we have clients on one side and then we have teams working on client project, and clients want every hour that they paid us to be justified. So we really have to spend our hours wisely to work on a project. And that was my most intensive time in this programming career. And then after that, I moved on with another company. And then at some point, I decided that I want to work with other people as well. Like, it's not like working as a developer. It's not about working with people, but I want to work with real people, as I consider other people success as my work outcome. Yeah. And so that's why I found myself here. And I think to answer your question, then coding and technology has always been something that I can do well. That I feel, and that creates me a good feeling when I do them, because I do it well, so I feel good about doing that again tomorrow. And that also brought me here to make what I am today. So that's why I like it.
What about you, Margit?
I just recently remembered that I always have had interest how things works, and I remember a couple of episodes of my life. I was really young back then, and I remember I tried to open our TV and radio to see what's happening inside, not thinking that how the people are getting in, but how it works, what happens there. So I was always that kid who was cutting things open to see what's inside and so on. And my first experience with the computers came, I don't know, but for some people it's quite late. I think it was in the middle of 90s. But as soon as I saw first computer, I was in. I was like, really, that was so wow. I was addicted right away. And my first web pages, what I said that we needed to have some web page and some posters, flyers, and everything. As soon as I opened the front page, back then everything was it was
front page back in like 98.
Yes, it was part of the office products. It was a bigger the package, and if you bought the bigger one, you got the front page as well. And first, I remember I started with the drag and drop, and as soon as I saw that code and how I can influence it, front end is my biggest love. And then CSS came, and the JavaScript and all the stuff. It's coming and going, and I would say it's always been love for the first sight. But as I do code right now as well, there is like maybe once in a month, maybe once in 2 months, I hate it. Gosh, I hate it. I write code and I'm thinking, what on earth I was thinking? I'm so bad, I can't do it. I should switch profession. It's so bad, until I get the solution and I love it again. But it's love and hate, but I really do love it.
On and off.
Yes.
Yeah, so actually, I've never worked a single day as a software developer, even though I have software development background. My father was an entrepreneur, and we always had a computer. And back in '95, I was making web pages in school as I was like 10 years old, and we were making web pages because web was really young, about like different games and stuff like that. And then I started. The first time I started to program was with COBOL language, Common Business Oriented Language, which is from 50s. So that was like really interesting. I wanted to code my own game. And I ended up even with the assistance, of course, of my father, I ended up coding like a football manager game, because one of my favorite games was Championship Manager, which was like managing a football team. And coding was on and off for me. Actually, after high school, I got into Aalto. Back then it was Tekoko, and I was going to be a construction engineer from Aalto. And then after a couple of months, I had issues with Kela because I was renting an apartment in Kallio due from my father, and Kela looked at that deal as like I was renting it from my father directly, and they refused to pay me like a asumislisä, and then I didn't have the means to at that time to actually live there. So I decided to go and work at a Shell, like a gas station. And I worked there for a year, and then during that time I wanted to switch fields to be a math teacher, and computer science was something that was always like familiar to me, so I decided to do a minor in computer science. And of course, my whole career after graduation, I've been involved in computer science. So that's like my background. But you already discussed how you actually got your first job as a part of software development team in Finland. But what about you? How did you land your first job back in Rovio?
I actually sent many applications, so the so-called spamming application before that. So I did a search on every technology company, like technical companies in Helsinki area, and send each of them a copy of my application. That never works.
Yeah.
Then at the moments when I almost gave up, because I really wanted to have a job, then I saw that job posted by Rovio, and then I just wrote there, because their application form doesn't allow me to upload the file. It says it's too big. or something like that. And then I had to fill in the form, so I just fill in whatever I had in my mind. And then that somehow sounds more genuine. And then they called me up for an interview. And I show up in the interview and I did not remember what I wrote in there. Yeah. And somehow I got a job because obviously the requirements for that job was not too high, that they don't need a wizard to complete that task. They needed someone who wanted to learn and display they just look for a match for their position. And I was obviously the righteous, like the most correct person they have in their selection pool at the time. So I got a job. And it was not easy at the beginning. I had to learn a lot too, because the person who works there on the code that I was responsible for maintaining, was obviously very, very skilled. And I had to understand his job so that I could update it. So I learned a lot from that task. Actually.
When you were saying update, did you mean refactoring or actually making changes to the program?
Making changes to the program, because at that time they had new requirements for that, and within the team of 6, none of them had the task to maintain that code, and they decided that they could take some extra power, because companies like that usually have recruitment for the summer and potentially looking for a new match for their company. So maybe after the summer, if they had like a space for a web developer, like that team who I worked for did not have the budget for an extra developer. Their team was full, but they have extra tasks and no one to complete the task. That's why they hire an extra trainee for the summer. And but the company business went bad, so I moved to a new one.
Yes, but how did you actually land the job? I mean, you said that you were not actually, you haven't formally studied software development ever,
yes.
From what I recall, but you did learn something. So what was the tech stack back in that legacy program?
I understand your question now. So actually back in Bachelor, I had mandatory, like compulsory training in these C and Java programming language. So in a way, I have a good foundation in programming languages.
Sure.
I also learned Java back in secondary school and high school as well. So actually programming languages was not new to me. And it was in fact a minor of mine back in Bachelor. And it was not related to what I studied at all. In Master, I did a bit of programming for routers and switches because I was trained to be like a network programmer. Or something like that. So I would say that I did have a good foundation, except that programming is a lot about doing and creating the outcome of your work matters. So it's not about completing an exercise. So in order to be able to complete the real job, you need to get your hands dirty. And that's what I was missing.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think that first job that I got opened up a new career path for me, because before that I was aiming for something like Nokia or Ericsson was something more of a match for my profile.
Yes. So that's like a similar experience to me. Back in the early 2000s, I was studying in Helsinki University computer science faculty. And of course, I studied a lot of Java programming and other things as well. But they were all like pieces of the puzzle. And I never like felt that back then, of course, development or software development or programming was not cool at all. But I did a bunch of different things. I mean, like a relational database project where I had to learn PHP by myself and build like 40 tables of the specifications were very strict for like a pizza service web page. and I did something like 40 tables for a pizza service, and then PHP queries and stuff like that, just for a couple of credits in university. So back then I was like, I know I can do this. It's like something that I like to do, but that was not like a passion for me. And I did apply to some development jobs when I was looking for teacher jobs, but I was like really focusing to be a teacher. So I ended up taking I did manage to get interviews to a dev position, but I did choose a teacher position instead back then.
I wanted to add to my background. I think I had a little bit opposite or different path, because I started to do those web pages. I remember I did it my own. Back then there wasn't internet like that you can learn. You really learned by doing. And I remember I did my first web page, it was 98. And 2004, I felt already that I've been doing it for some time, but it's not enough. I would like to see more organized and structured teaching. So I was already doing it. I was quite okay, I would say. And then I went to school like that, like business college in here. And with the 2 years, I was studying web design and e-commerce was the study program. So I went there to get better structured, organized overview of that. And then I got the backend and my first programming languages as well, because until then I was focusing only in the front end HTML and
like
so
markup languages
yes,
only.
Yes, yeah. Exactly. So as you said, you had already programming languages behind, and so I had that way. When I went to school, I knew exactly what I've been going to. I was highly motivated, and the 2 years it get even worse in that way, sense that it was always my choose path. I always knew that front end is my big love. And after that, I was 1 year in a private business, and I ended up to be teacher. That the same things, but I was studying in the same school, so I was away for 1 year. But I started to teach some of those some students who I had student life together. Eventually, their last year, I was their teacher. So, but it has been always for me that I knew exactly what I want, and because of that, I went to school like this one in here.
I think you remind me my first application, like my first web page that I made is actually quite early, back in 2004 or something like that. It happens by chance. That it was not for a good purpose though. It was so I lost my password to my email to a friend of mine, and I didn't know how I lost it until he explained to me that he just went to well, by that time I have a Yahoo Mail, and then he just went to the login page of Yahoo Mail. He copied the source code, so just right click and view source code, copy everything, and then he created another site that looks exactly identical to Yahoo. So it was phishing technique. So on his identical looking sites, if you type in the password, then the password doesn't help you to log in, but instead it's going to send to his email. And at that time, your password, like I was in secondary school, and my password was containing my secret. It was the name of my crush, and and nobody knew that. So I felt really ashamed about that, and I just decided to do the same to others. So I built similar kind of sites and just had fun changing other password. So that's how I think that was my first web application, even though I didn't really know what I was doing. It's just changing a little bit to send the user input to my email.
I might sound like some old lady speaking, but back then it was only way to do it. You just try to crash it, and
Is that so?
by accident it starts working, because there wasn't any learning materials. There was some tutorials or something, I remember, but you just try to take some code away and put something else and follow the patterns. At least for me, when how I started to learn.
What made you take a leap and move from Estonia to Finland? What was the key driver back then?
Oh, it's so difficult question. There's many things, but I would say let's sum with my words with my daughter. When I was discussing with her, should I go to Finland because I got the job offer and so on, and I asked from her what is her opinion, should I go or not? And she was young and smart back then, now still young and smart, but she said something to me what really made me say yes. She said that, "Mommy, you are not going to be young forever. That might be a chance for you for a lifetime. So go and be brave." And I didn't need to any more excuses. Yeah. I got approved by my daughter, and yes, that was the reason why I finally took the leap.
And what kind of different challenges? I mean, Hoang, you already talked about different challenges, like from a technical or pressure perspective. But what kind of challenges would you say you would have been facing when you were starting as a developer in Finland as an immigrant?
So this is just my personal point of view. Let's say I'm just a random person and I might come to a decision that I want to become a software developer for different reasons. Some people want to become a software developer because they think it is cool, but they don't have a real genuine interest about being a software developer. Then for these people, sometimes it happens so that when it gets hard, they will quit. So that would be a challenge that they would have to overcome if they really want, but they don't, right? Okay, so the second type is that people who are sort of like shy to try out new things, and they want it so that they only start doing something only when they know it really well. Otherwise, they will never feel confident and they feel like they have to learn more and more and more and more. But like I said earlier, software development is all about getting the result out. I give you this input and I expect that output. So if you want to know how to do it, you have to get your hand dirty and try it and fail, and then you'll learn. And then next time you won't have the same question again. Then you have already become a better version of yourself. So that's what I think that most people would have to overcome when they on this career path, is to overcome themselves.
Yeah, it's like on the first episode I discussed about persistence, and you're talking about like a similar version of that, like being uncomfortable because you don't know how to actually solve the problem yet. And that's like what programming or development is all about, in my opinion. But what about you yourself? What kind of experiences did you have when you were starting out as a developer in Finland?
I think it's very often to feel like I felt myself lost at some point, and then I felt the need to make a question because now I don't know where to start from to solve this question, so I want to ask. But then if I do that within a company, then I have to understand that I'm taking other people's time. It's like I'm taking their attention away from their real job so that they help me to solve my job. Of course, it is needed, it is acceptable, and it is correct thing to do. But if I keep asking questions without doing my research, proper research, then I'm wasting their time. So that is a pressure for someone who try to learn software development from real work-life situation. But then the reward is high. After you overcome that, then you become a real developer. But for example, if we actually do that in a practical training program within an institute here, then I think my students have a better chance to become developers because they can make me question, and I'm encouraged them to make question, and they are supposed to make mistake here so that they don't make the same mistake again in the real world situation.
Yeah.
And I think that was like I talked to one of my students earlier last week, and he said that his challenge was to find a balance point between when to ask a question and when to search for the answer himself. So I think that's something to add to.
Yeah. What about you, Margit?
Me personally, coming to here and work and find work here, I have to admit that Finland has been treating me extremely well. I don't know anything about those issues. I hope nothing happens in my way home now. But I've been living here now 6 years. Actually, this week it's going to be 6 years when I moved here, or maybe next. Anyhow, I've always had job. I always have support, and I don't know any of those issues. Everything has been going really smoothly, and even coming here and working directly in a software building or software company, I little bit think that my background coming as Estonian, everybody starts with, oh, Estonia, you have that e-Estonia, you have Skype. In a software business, everybody know already. They already assume that if you are already doing development and you're coming from Estonia, it's not so crappy quality. So I never treated it or felt anything bad. I'm always feeling quite smart and successful in here. So I have only good words to say.
I think I phrased my question badly. What I would like to know is, you were working in Finland, coming from abroad, and you were not fluent in Finnish. So did that like add extra encumbrances when you were starting as a dev?
Not for me. I started in a Symbio. Symbio back then was already a big company, and what I loved about that, we had so many nationalities. So everyday work was English, and it was official. It wasn't even that in a coffee corner somebody is gonna speak in Finnish, because we had so many different people. And that was the reason why I say that I felt so good, because everybody was kind of visitors in here. So I never felt unique or in that sense that, oh, look, she's somebody from abroad. It was so normal. Everybody had background. There was many people coming from another countries. So my official language for many years in Finland was English. I didn't need to speak Finnish at all. So that went smoothly as well. Learning Finnish language, what I use now in my everyday communication, that was purely my choice, not need.
What about you?
I think a big number of students, I don't know how to start explaining it, but like Margit said, so English is the main working language of IT field, because people come from different backgrounds, and if everyone in your office speak Finnish or Swedish, then still your client might be English, or your partners speak only English. And if you have someone in the office who do not understand the local language, then still it is preferred to have the conversation only in English when it's written down, so that everyone is understood it, and we don't lose any information. Yeah, so I don't think you phrase your question badly, but it's because it has never been a problem, so that's why.
Yeah.
Yeah. it's not the first thing that comes to my mind. I think it might only be a problem if you work for a company, like you work in the IT field for a non-technical company. For example, you work in the IT department of IKEA. Then there could be a chance that everyone's there prefer to speak only Finnish or Swedish. But if you work for a technical company where the majority of the employees are developers or technical, then they usually have very big pool of different backgrounds. Then it would be English.
Yeah, maybe we are not the best people to answer that because it has been going so smoothly. Although we saw in LinkedIn and lots of social media, there's lots of discussions that there is issues getting a job when you don't speak Finnish. But yes, we were lucky. We didn't need it, and it was our choice to learn Finnish, not by forced to.
Yeah, I mean, I've been thinking about the political situation in Finland, and I think that we need to have more skilled immigrants from abroad to work here. But now the situation is like so many different companies want to people to actually know and speak Finnish. It's like, how are we ever going to lure a skilled person from abroad by proposing that move to Finland and then stay here for the rest of your life because you have to learn Finnish? I mean, I think that we should think of ourselves as a gateway to Europe. So come here, see how it feels like. If you really enjoy it, feel welcome to stay here, but you don't have to make a huge commitment in like in learning Finnish language. You should be able to work in English language in different companies, and we are very gradually, very slowly moving towards that direction. But I would much prefer it to really move faster. I don't know what do you think about that?
For me, yeah, as I've been supervising now those students who are looking internship place, I've heard sometimes reasoning that why they don't get places is because they don't speak language, and honestly I don't know what to do with that, but I totally understand that it's not so big language and it's difficult language for people to learn it. For me, I have a small, slight advantage, yes, because the languages are so close. But I think as a software developer teacher, I see more problem that people, I would like to still give code in English and documentation in English. I see even bigger problem if they start to make code to not to be in English. That's what I've considered. But right now it's okay. But as soon everybody starts using their local languages for written, then it should be a problem. Then we don't understand it anymore. But
so I understand that we are not well representing like the situation here, but I still think that there are certain companies that really need their developers to be able to speak certain language like Finnish or Swedish because their clients speak Finnish. And if you work with a client, you need to be able to communicate with the client in their native language because clients are always right. But I think there are like at least half of the companies out there use English as the main working language, and knowing a local language or an extra language only serve as an advantage. Yes. So if a student get rejected for that reason, that student should not get discouraged, but instead just apply again. But this time pick another company. And maybe study about the company business a bit more so that it sometimes help explaining why they have such requirements.
Yeah, I mean, an individual company with different clients' needs, I don't consider that a problem at all. But like in a bigger picture, we should, I think, move towards to be because the globe is getting smaller and smaller each year. And if we want to be like a small tech hub in Europe or in Northern Europe, we should make things easier for people to just try it, how it feels like, and work here for a couple of years or so. I mean,
I think the Finnish government recently launched these new websites to attract more foreign manpower in this technical field. So I think
that's good.
there are also like action being taken from the governmental level. So
Yeah. What was it called again?
Jobs in Finland.
Jobs in Finland, yeah.
I think something.
Yeah.
It was really simple, so I can't remember.
I think they pick a good name then.
Yeah.
If it's a random name I came up, and then it is the name of the
If
website.
it's not done yet, we can do it. Jobs in Finland.
So what would you recommend for a person who is wondering or wanting to be a developer, where to start and how to move towards a professional position?
Every teacher is teaching like they learn themselves. So my first advice would be that start from somewhere, start doing it, and find yourself some learning materials or some videos, some courses. Come to us, come to here. Find yourself mentor, find yourself idols. Fake it until you make it. All those, it sounds cliche, but that's how we learned. And that's how you learn to be developer. You do, you fail fast, but do right, that don't give up. But just waiting that somebody will give you that skill, no, it doesn't not come like that. You have to start it somewhere. So take your first web page what you like, whatever it is. I'm speaking behalf of front-end, of course. So take that web page what you like and try to create it your own. Make a copy like your experience was. So in the front-end, just do it. Start with there. You don't need much to be a developer in that sense that you don't need to have any big machines or separate working rooms or something. Get yourself a computer and some notepad even works. Just start somewhere. And doing. Being developer for me, there isn't shortcuts. You can't be going just, let's do it quickly. Let's do 10 hours course and you're gonna be developer. You have to earn to be it. You have to learning by pain and learning by doing. That's my experience.
What about you?
I agree with pretty much everything you said. I also want to add that one has to understand that becoming a programmer is no easy task. It is hard. That's why you get paid for doing it, because people don't know how to do it, and people cannot learn how to do it. That's why they have to pay someone to do it. So if you choose it, then you have to be able to do what they cannot. And being a developer, you will find yourself in a room where you are the only one who know how to get that job done. And you basically cannot ask anyone. And there would be no mentorship. And then you might have to communicate with people that, hey, this might not be the right specification. Maybe we can change the specification so that it would be more doable this way. And it's also about negotiating the specification of the software. So I would say that it's a career path that is suitable for someone who is able of utilizing the internet to find out the needed materials to get job done, not afraid to ask questions, and also has to be a little bit sneaky sometimes.
That gives me a leeway to a thing that I've been thinking about. It's job titles in different companies. I mean, we can have a job title like front-end developer, which could be like a job description where you have to know HTML5, CSS3, and JavaScript. And if you are studying web development and you read those kind of job descriptions, you might think, oh wow, I'm a professional now, I know these three things. But in reality, for example, in Greater Helsinki area, you might have like 3 jobs open with that job description, and you have like hundreds of people who could actually fill that job description. And what I would encourage everyone to do is to learn more. So then you would actually be able to apply to a much more diverse variety of different development jobs, and then there are fewer competitors. Like we were saying earlier, sometimes it's hard, and sometimes you're the only one who can do it.
But yeah, it's for sure it's not profession that I go to school, I study, I'm ready, that's it. I'm gonna do it 20 years. It's constant learning, and it sounds cliche again that yeah, you have to be ready to learn all the time. But even now, when we prepare only the lessons, we constantly learn new things, new best practice all the time, learning. So if you want to be lazy and you want to do something that I get that profession and now I do it, then development is not your thing. You always, it's about wanting to challenge yourself all the time. You have to have some problems to figure out. There has to be something like saving the world mentality, that always figure it out. So that is my opinion about developers. Always facing some new problems and trying to make something better, faster, or something like that. I see developers as superheroes.
I don't know if it's because I'm a Finn or something, but I think that you also have to be gracious to yourself and give yourself like room and space to develop, because you can't always push like 100% forward. You have to sometimes take steps back and then build from that.
True.
Thank you for listening our podcast. We really appreciate your feedback or suggestions. If you want to give us input, you can do it via our social media channels or email us at podcast.bc.fi. Thank you.